Hi, welcome. My name is Michelle from YFS, and with me today is Mel from the YFS Legal team.
Hi,
how you going?
Good, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. All right, so a big topic today. We're going to have a chat about domestic violence. So it's fairly prevalent in the media at the moment, and certainly something that a lot of people are concerned about. So it's probably a really good idea to sort of set out straight up front, what is domestic violence?
Okay, so domestic violence encompasses so many things. There's no list that we can go to. So when we're looking at what the Domestic Violence Act says is domestic violence, it has a list in there, but it's not exhaustive. So things that are obvious that people say are domestic violence are things like physical abuse. So if your partner punches you or hits you or pushes you, anything that's unwanted physical contact, that would be considered domestic violence. And people say that in the media a lot, the physical abuse. Then there's also things that are a little bit more underlying insidious kind of domestic violence, things like emotional abuse, where someone will call you names or say you're a bad parent or just make you feel generally bad about yourself. That doesn't have to be one incident. That can be a series of incidents that happens over a period of time, even over a number of years before that lowers your self-esteem. Things like calling you names in arguments, telling you you're crazy, the things that you think are experiencing aren't really happening.
It's stuff that people don't necessarily, I suppose, normally associate with something like domestic violence.
That's right. The name in itself makes people alienated from domestic violence because they say it's domestic violence. There has to be something violent. That's not always the case. We normally lie not to call it domestic abuse. It's something that happens that makes you feel bad about yourself, a lack of respect from your partner. And domestic violence is not only partner violence, it can be from parents, brothers, sisters, uncles, anyone in your family.
And children as well? Like I'm talking older, so I suppose young adult children.
Young adult, yes, absolutely. If you're in a relationship with someone, and even if you're still at high school, there can be domestic abuse in that relationship as well. It's not something that just happens between adults.
Now, I know you talked about like the emotional. What about financial? So I know sometimes I think, you talked about it being such a broad topic. Is financial abuse, does that come under domestic violence?
It absolutely does come under domestic violence, and that's something that we see quite often in the courts, is any kind of financial abuse. So that's something like if you get paid and it goes straight into your partner's account, or if you get paid into your account but your partner immediately tells you where you can and can't go and pay things with that money. Things like, you get given an allowance that doesn't cover what you need it to cover, and that somebody else always has control about what's happening. That can be making you sign documents to get loans or mortgages or things that you're not in agreement with. Even that's financial abuse.
And I suppose that's the thing, isn't it? You mentioned the word control. And I think that's probably because, some of these things, I think that within the realm of a relationship, sometimes that is the agreement that both people have. But it's more around that control, isn't it?
That's right. And that's where domestic violence really comes into play, is control. It's not about anger management. It's not about getting angry and things get out of hand. It's about control. The violence, if it's physical violence, is used to control. The emotional abuse is used to control. The financial abuse is used to control, and that's to keep one partner in a relationship in a subdued position.
And I was going to say, one of the things I feel we probably didn't talk about, but it's maybe worth mentioning, is isolation.
That's right, absolutely. Again, that's part of the control. If you don't have anyone who you can talk to and anyone you can rely on to help get you out of that relationship, you're much more likely to stay in that relationship, which is ultimately what the perpetrator would like.
And I suppose one of the things to say is that if someone's listening and they think that these things kind of connect with them in some way, what can they do about that?
Well, they can contact YFS. We can help them with deciding and making that connection and seeing if that does fulfil the elements in the Act. Otherwise, a chat with DV Connect either can also help with understanding whether or not this is domestic violence and how they move forward.
And I think, though, one of the important things to note is that there are quite a range of supports available to people. You can access them in a range of ways, and that being able to access supports, particularly legal stuff, it's all private and confidential, right?
That's right. It's all private and confidential. And the other thing is that most of these services have safety precautions
Yes.
around them. So if anyone's going to be calling you, they're going to come from a private number, so no one can monitor that. They're going to make sure you're safe to speak to them before that they actually speak to you. So there's going to be safety methods in place so you can contact these places without being in fear for your life.
Okay, all right. We might leave it there for this video, but we might come back and have a chat in another video just around what some of the things are that people can do if they find themselves in that situation. If though listening to this and you have questions, you can contact YFS on 3826 1500, and someone will be able to give you information around other services that you can connect with. All right, thank you.
Thank you.